Well, good morning, and welcome to another episode of this podcast that I'm doing, where I'm recounting the tales of how I started my YouTube channel. I'm kind of using this as we're going to go along my journey on how I started on YouTube and how I got wrapped up and involved in some really weird YouTube stuff. It was really fun YouTube stuff, but that was a little bit later on. We're still talking about the early days. And in the last episode, in that last podcast that we did, I was talking about the motivation that got me started of being in the oil field and working like 140-hour weeks. And, I wanted to get away from all of that. My brother and my dad did too. And we had this conversation on Easter one day where we're all talking about our dreams and aspirations. I was like, I'm sick of talking about it. I wanted to just do it. And so what happened was, like immediately after that, I say immediately, it was probably a year later. No, it was maybe that summer. I upgraded my phone. The phone that I had was crap. So as you can, if you aren't aware, my entire YouTube channel is done on my mobile phone. And it's a pretty good YouTube channel. I haven't shown it or anything yet because it's really not important. It is a good channel. I have done well. And I do YouTube professional. At least I did it professionally up until recently, but that's again a story for another day. So it's a good channel. And I do it all with the phone. So it was that summer that I got an upgraded phone. By an upgraded phone, man, I mean like at that time, and I'm still doing this to this day, it was like a 5-year-old phone. That thing had no memory on it. The camera wasn't great. It was HD. It was good enough. And this is 8 years ago. This was the mid 2010s when I started doing this. I actually, and I'll have to bring Peter back on to have more of a conversation about this, but we did some independent films, and he was the film guy. My brother was. And that is what really got me into film and videography and all of that stuff. I wasn't too interested in it until he got started, and he motivated me into doing it. And so that was well before. That was like 2009 when we were doing that and had a lot of fun with it. So I was doing the oil field for a couple of years there and working really hard and literally broke my back and suffered hernia and some injuries and stuff like that. I wanted out. I wanted to get into something that could offer an alternate source of revenue. I didn't have any aspirations, like not aspirations. I did have that, but I didn't have any expectations that I was going to be able to turn this into a money-making thing. That was a thing that was happening back then. People were making money, but there had been the adpocalypse. At that time is when YouTube had implemented you had to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time on the channels right when that happened. And so that seemed so insurmountable. It seemed like such a tall order, especially, I hadn't even started publishing videos yet. I didn't even have a channel yet. We're still talking early days of getting started. So I just knew that I wanted to do this. This was something that I was passionate about. And I knew that I had something to offer the world. So I do a fishing channel. And my thought behind doing a fishing channel, I had a couple of things that I was looking at. And I'm going to make a video about this because I think there are some important elements here that you need to think about when you're first starting your YouTube channel. But I didn't fully understand at that time what it was that I was looking at. So I made some interesting decisions that were based on all the right reasons. But there are some things that I probably could have figured out a little bit better. So I got that phone. Oh, and for the fishing thing that I was talking about. So the deal with that is that we do fishing, and it's always an adventure. It's always fun. There's always something amazing that happens, whether it be you have sometimes it's weird stuff, like you have dolphins coming and like hanging around the boat and they want to play, something like that. One time I was out sailing and I ran across like this 20-foot manta ray just sitting there, just sunning himself. And I was in a little tiny sailboat. The manta ray was bigger than my boat. And, we run across sharks or buried treasure. Literally there's like gold doubloons that could be found on Padre Island, and I think my uncle has a few that he found. So it's like I said, it's always an adventure, and I'm like, man, I want to share that with the world. We always enjoyed taking people out on these fishing trips because if you're going 30 miles offshore and you're seeing things that you rarely ever get to see in life. Getting to see a water spout a mile away, like right there next to your boat. Or we saw a rogue wave one time. And I know that doesn't sound terribly crazy, but it is when you're out in the middle of nowhere and all of a sudden just a perfect 4-foot waves comes rolling by. It's like on a flat day. It's weird. It's weird. Seeing weird things flying across the horizon, like really low things, like a plane flying 30 feet off of the ground all across the Gulf of Mexico. Weird stuff. You know what I mean? So I was like, this is the sort of thing that I want to share with the world. I want to share this video. I want to share it with more than the one person we can take out on the boat. And that was kind of the driving force behind why I wanted to go in that direction. I just wanted to share that experience. I just wanted, like to have fun with it. And I thought that was something that I was, good enough that it was something that I could do for the rest of my life and be happy. And it's something that I could contribute. These are foundationally the right things to be making that decision on. Now, in hindsight, I see the things that I would advise other people to do. And it would be, and I'm making a video about this, but it's basically you need to figure out your revenue sources. You need to figure out how you're going to make money. You need to be able to make content for, like the rest of your life. If this is successful, unless there is a plan for obsolescence, a plan for the channel to end, you're probably not going into your channel with an end game. And not to say you need to have one. When I started mine, I did have a 10-year plan, which we're coming up on now. We're on year 7, and we're going good enough to where, like, my plan was, I'm going to do this hard for 10 years. I'm going to do it right. I'm going long haul. And I gave myself an out at like 5 years. If it's not going well, you can, reassess at the 5-year mark. And it was going well, so I just kept going. You probably don't have a plan like that in place, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but you really do need to have that level of commitment for any successful project. How else are you going to plan? You need to plan things. You need to plan life events around the work that you do. That can be difficult. You don't think about that part when you're thinking about, making content full time, but it's definitely a part of it. Family vacations. How are you going to go on a family vacation and maintain publishing cadence? You don't have to. Take the time off. Go spend time with your family. But you're going to get a pay cut that month. You know what I mean? Just things to consider with that. And there's going to be more with the videos we've done. So, but beginning off, when I first started, so I got that camera and I love filming. We had done a film festival film, and we for all these films that we do, like, we won awards. They were not good. They were not great movies at all. It was always a labor of love. We were always one of those, like, we liked being the upstart, I don't know, like, rowdy kids, I guess, like, we were in our 20s, but we liked being that kind of, like, everybody's making these film festival movies, like with real cameras and real actors and actresses and serious crews, and they invested money into it and they were winning serious money with it. We weren't that. And we knew we weren't that. Like we were self-aware. We were having fun. And we wanted to present that on camera. We just wanted to be fun, you know. We just wanted to make an enjoyable experience. And so for one of the movies, we did it all with cell phones. So I had some experience doing that. And I had this cell phone that had a, you know, it was HD, not new, but pretty cool at the time. Still a 5-year-old phone that I got. I was being cheap. And it didn't have expandable memory. Man, that was a pain. That was a real pain, not having that expandable memory. So it's so stupid when they do that, isn't it? Phone companies, again, planned obsolescence, pain in the ass. So I had some background and I knew what to do, and I knew I wanted to do some filming. And so this is what I did. I'll bring it up. I'll show you my very first video. Not too bad. Like, I am not unproud of this video. We're going to EFAP my first video here. That's my channel. And this was my very first video that I posted 6 years ago. Okay. Oh, that audio. So we went out to this little town down the road that doesn't do this anymore, but they have these deer that are friendly. And we went to feed the deer. Just had a day where we went and just played with these deer and got a ton of family footage. Gosh, again, so small back then. She's grown up. That's her cousins. My cousin, my brother were out there with their kids. So, you know. Funny, the funny side story on this. I was doing music. We're going to talk about this in a minute here. And I was doing music at the time. I was playing in a band. And so this was just some stuff that I had just stupidly just jammed out. It was like a one time, no practice, just recording some music. And I plugged that in. Look at that buck. Yeah. But so I was recording music and I just, you know, had some of that music. I was just throwing that in because I had a phone. I didn't know how to use YouTube Audio Library. I didn't even know that existed at the time. Wanted some music, so I just threw in these cheap jams. Excuse me. No, not okay. So anyway, that's pretty much, there's more to it, but it's just several minutes of like all footage of them, all of us just feeding deer. That was my first video. And I did that. I knew that when I started my channel, I need to make a note of this. When I started the channel, I knew that I wanted the family involved. The family needed to be involved. That I couldn't just do it where um, I was going to leave for a day You know, like if I needed to film a video, I did not want to be like, okay, wife and daughter, I'm off to work. I'm going to go film a YouTube video. I wanted this to be something that we did together. I wanted it to be something that involved the family. And this was an opportunity to practice that. This was a chance to where, you know, I could film and see how, you know, we had this unique experience that we were going to go do. And I wanted to see what kind of video I could put together with the resources that I had, doing it with a phone. So that was another thing too, was this was it. The intention of the channel was to allow me to spend more time with my family. Mind you, like at this time, I'm working in the oil field. I am literally doing 140-hour weeks. Like I would put in 138 hours, something like that, in a work. I was working 30-hour days. Like I would show up to work at 7 a.m. and build wellhead. Like I'm not in the office. I'm not doing easy jobs. I'm turning wrenches from 7 a.m. until noon the next day. Like it was really tough. I had one year where I think my first year there, I had 3 days off in that first year, like 3 legitimate days where I did not have a phone call from work, where I got called in to have to go to work. So anyway, long story, like, yeah. So the intention of this channel was that it needed to be something that I was going to spend more time with my family. It was very important to me. They needed to be, you know, a part of what was going on. So we had this family trip where we're going out and we've got these deer. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to film this. It's going to be a family video and I'm going to play with it. I'm going to experiment and see how this works, you know, this whole thing. So I went and filmed that. I actually had a couple other little test videos that I had done because I also knew that I, you know, wanted to do fishing stuff. So I wanted, are they not on there? Let me check that. I'm curious about that now. This is shown as the first video. They're not on there. Interesting. Okay. No problem. Okay. So I was just curious about that. So I had some other ones that I was messing with, videos where I was learning how to like I got a waterproof case for the phone and playing around with it and stuff. So they're probably private on the channel. Yeah, because there weren't anything. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So Savvy was really young, and we were really careful about putting her out there on that. We've been really careful. If you notice, you don't see her in a whole lot. Like I want her on there. She is part of the family. I love having her as a camera person. She is wonderful, and she's older now. She will be a teenager in 2 weeks. So. 6 years ago, I was a lot more cautious about it. Now I'm still super cautious. Don't get me wrong, but she also is getting at an age where she is a little bit more aware of all of those sorts of things, and she's seen me deal with that sort of thing over the years too. So it wouldn't be anything new to her now. Probably so shocking though. So gonna be careful about it. Anyway. So that's to say that, you know, some of those videos are hidden on the channel. This was one that I put out publicly, and I did that because I was experimenting with YouTube stuff at that time. So I put this out there, and, you know, I didn't go viral or anything. The audio noise is actually really terrible. Like it got windy, and I didn't know the first thing about handling wind noise. So I saved you some terrible wind noise on that video. But that's how I started. Like it was an experiment. And that first video was actually 6 or 8 months before I really started the channel. This was an experiment. I did a couple of them. Anytime there was a family event, you'll see on the channel there that. So that first video was this deer. God, that's a terrible thumbnail, by the way. The second one was this snowstorm that we had. That year, actually, I believe it was that fall, right after this. But we had a snowstorm. This is South Texas. We don't get snow. It has snowed twice in my lifetime. And literally, like the first time it snowed in my lifetime, they wrote books about it that you find at the grocery store. I am not even kidding. Like they wrote a book about the time it snowed in South Texas. So we had some snow, and so we went out. I took the morning with my daughter, and we went out and just filmed snow in South Texas, and I made a video about it. I wanted these to be things, there's a lot of stuff interspersed on the channel that are for my family so that they can watch. Maybe every now and then we put out a video that's not quite as fun. It's not quite as fishing channel video stuff. That's because it's family stuff that I want my family to be able to enjoy. The next video that I've got on there is this series of Cozumel. So I went to Cozumel. This was the second or third time we'd actually been to Cozumel, and I wanted to film it. I wanted to put that experience out there. I wanted to be able to share it. It was amazing to me. Like we love it down there. And I wanted to film I'm a little under the weather, sorry. Wanted to film some snorkeling while we were down there, and I wanted to share all of the behind the scenes stuff that happens when you're over there, what it's like. And so I told my wife, I was like, let's have some fun with it. Let's film a little vlog, just like all the YouTubers do. She was not into the YouTube thing, by the way, back then. She didn't mind me doing family videos. That's how I slipped this under the radar. My wife is a Luddite. She wants zero technology. I am an outdoorsman, and I am super, super willing to accommodate that. I have no problems going full Luddite, no technology. I will do that. That's what she wants. I will do that. Dump the PlayStation, do it all. I just want to be able to film it. That's all, especially these days. So that was the thing back then, was she was not into YouTube. She had zero, like she needed to see it. She needed to experience it. Probably given the opportunity to pivot away from YouTube and do something else, she would probably, still make that push today. But she would do it with a little bit more concern. She has a little bit more respect for the whole thing now. But back then it was a little tough. So I was like, let's just have fun with it. We're going to go to Cozumel and let's film some videos of us going to Cozumel. Let's do a little vlog. And she was into that, and we had a lot of fun with it. And that is how I slipped into doing the YouTube thing. Despite that, it took me a while. After that series of videos, it was still a while before I kicked off the channel, because at that time I mentioned this a minute ago, I was doing music, and there's shots of me playing in a band. And this was one of the things that really kicked me off. And this is the moral. This is the point of this podcast episode, because this experience shaped me big time when it came to YouTube, and not in a good way. It was not a good thing. It was I'm going to say a lesson learned. It was, there was good things from it, definitely. But it was a weird lesson to learn. So I was, this was the thing that I would do at night, like after work, and I was dedicated. It was a buddy of mine is an excellent, excellent songwriter. And I'm a big fan of his music. I was a big fan of his music at the time. I enjoyed going to watch him play at shows, like live at open mics and stuff. And he wanted to do bands. He was in bands. I had experience in bands, but it had been many years. And, I'm 30 at that point. And I'm like, probably a little bit old for a band, but you want to jam out. Like I'd love to go and jam out and play some music. And so we started doing that, and it really, it really grew well. Like we were having fun. It didn't grow as far as like making money and stuff, but we got into playing some pretty cool shows. We ended up playing we played at different events and venues around South Texas. We played at Western Week in Beeville, which is a big deal, man. Western Week. There was a crowd there, man. There's a couple hundred people there. We did South by Southwest. We did a show at South by Southwest in front of like 4,000 people. There's an asterisk on that because it was actually like South by Southwest is so like on 6th Street in Austin, like all these buildings are all connected, all these clubs and bars and stuff. So this one place that we played at, the venue was on their roof, and you could look out, like the back of the stage faced out over 6th Street, and there's like 4,000 people walking down 6th Street, and we're sitting there playing on a stage in front of 4,000 people. The asterisk part of that comes in that there's 100 bars on that street, so there were 100 bands playing in front of 4,000 people that were all headed to some other show, some other event, while they're walking down the street. They weren't walking to see us, they were just walking by. They were window shopping the band. But we did that. We did a couple of shows in Austin. We did one in Corpus. That was this abandoned theater, or it had been abandoned. Let me see if I've got. Oh, that's what this show was. Yeah, this one that I showed you just a moment ago. That was its abandoned theater that we were at. Corpus Christi, and then we went and we explored all behind the scenes. There's a video on the channel. I guess that was kind of the point. So I was doing some video stuff for the band thing when we went and explored this whole abandoned old theater. It was cool. It was creepy. It was fun. Audio was not very good on that show, but it's because it's a big empty room or whatever. So anyway, long story short, sorry. I was really enjoying the band thing, and the deal that we had a deal. And my friend who I was playing with, if you're watching this, like, I really appreciate a recent conversation that we had regarding this. So when we were playing, we had a deal that we would, like, I wanted to play my songs and he wanted to do his songs, and I loved his songs. And my songs aren't great, but I've got energy. I've got like this, I'm an old school punk rock dude, and so I can bring old school punk rock to the stage. We were doing acoustic stuff, and it lends itself well, in my opinion. So the deal that we had set up was, we would play backing for each other. And I was 100% committed to that. And my friend was 100% committed to playing music and to doing the band and to, making this a thing. He 100% committed to that endeavor. His commitment was a driving force for me. It pushed me to, I was not going to be out committed. You know what I mean? So I would listen to his stuff while at work. I would practice it when I got home. Like I was nowhere near as good of a musician. So I really and I knew that. And I was like, I've got to practice to keep up, to manage to hold my own. If I want to use this guy in, because I just wanted to record, I had an album, I had some songs, and I have there's a few of those songs are about my wife, and I wanted to record those so that my wife could have them. And yeah, I wanted to give her a recording, and I wanted it to be something that she would enjoy listening to. And in order to do that, I needed a solid musician. And my friend was that musician. He's solid. He's excellent. So I worked really hard at learning his stuff. My stuff was, I guess, weird, and it was a little strange and hard to keep along with because it's not, I don't know, it's flawed, I guess. So flaws are hard to incorporate. Whatever the case may be, I knew it was difficult. to learn my songs, and I didn't even have that many. Like I didn't have as many songs as my friend did, and I didn't have a problem with that. But I knew it was difficult, so I went and like wrote out all the tab, and I recorded all the songs so that he could even listen and play along with them. And he never really learned my songs. He was a good musician, so when we went to shows, he could just play along. You'd heard him a few times, when we were playing live, and he could just kind of play along. But I never really got that reciprocation on that deal, and it hurt my feelings. Like I knew what was going on. I knew it was kind of a one-sided affair, to where we were really pushing his stuff and mine wasn't getting any attention. It was just kind of like, let's hammer through it, get through it so that we can get to my stuff. And we had some recording stuff that had done, and there was just some things with that entire deal where I felt my feelings were hurt on how that was going down. I was committed and I kept going, and I just bit my tongue, and I was trying to play a solid trooper. And then one day, and not trying to air out dirty laundry here or anything, but I was told, but I want to get, I say I want to get past it. And to be completely honest with you, I don't want to get past it. I'll explain that in a minute, though. That's kind of plays into the end moral of this whole deal. So what happened, the final thing that was kind of a big issue for me was that my friend felt like the division of labor wasn't fair. I was doing some YouTube stuff. You saw those early videos that I had been working on and putting out there. And I had done a lot of work on Facebook at the time, or prior to this time. And the thing that my friend just absolutely did not want to do was social media. I had several years prior, my wife being a Luddite, and with like the Facebook page and some other projects that I'd worked on prior, I had some mental health issues resulting from social media. I jumped into it not early on, but I jumped into it in the late 2009 era. And I did not have a good experience with that. It was not good for me. So I think it was like 2012, I completely quit social media. Like I was out, I was done. And that was the hotness at the time. Like you couldn't do anything without a Facebook page. And I was just committed to being anti. It's kind of part of the punk rock thing. Is like I was like the anti. I was, everybody's doing Facebook. Screw Facebook. I'm going to do YouTube. YouTube wasn't a social media thing. That was an artistic outlet for me. It wasn't about talking to people. I didn't have to engage. I could make videos and have fun with it and put them out there and, get numbers and views, which is something that you have to kind of learn to deal with as well. The issues involving an economy based around views and engagement. But that was okay. Like YouTube was okay. Social media just was not good for me. So I had completely stopped social media, and they kind of harassed me about that a few times. And I'm like especially with like the YouTube stuff. And they're like, "How are you going to do YouTube if you're not going to do social media?" So I'll show you how. I had full faith, and because I was studying YouTube art, I had full faith. I was like, "Nope, you are wrong. You do not need social media to grow your YouTube." So anyway, what happened was my friend didn't feel it was a fair division of labor for what we were all tackling, and he hated social media. So he kind of, at one of our practices, he was kind of like, "Hey, I want you to do the social media." I was like, "Man, I can't do that. Like, I don't do social media." And he wasn't, to be completely fair, he wasn't privy to the behind the scenes of the issues that I'd had with social media. He didn't know that was going on, and it was for real issues that I was having. And so, and I didn't tell him, like, I'm embarrassed. I'm a big, strong dude, and I'm not going to sit there and tell you all about my whiny, sappy little mental health problems that I'm having from social media. But I had not done it. It was a precedent that I had set, and I didn't really feel like I needed to explain it. I was just like, I don't do social media. It's like, well, you need to do the social media for the band. You've got the experience. You know what you're doing. This needs to be your thing. It's in your wheelhouse. And I was like, I'm not doing the social media. Like, I despise social media. I do not want to be doing it. I can't be doing it. I cannot invest my time in that. He's like, well, like, basically you either do it or you can't. Like, this whole endeavor that we're doing is not going to work. So I left. And I left with a real big chip on my shoulder. A chip on my shoulder that drives me to this day. It's fake now. My friend and I have talked it out, and we are okay. Like, everything's fine. We're still friends. We never stopped being friends. One of the things that we handled well was that this was always, like, as much as it hurt and as much as it was a really weird, like, way for things to go, and a weird setup in the whole thing, initial stages anyway. My friend and I we still have a strong mutual respect for what each other does. I still think he's one of the best musicians and songwriters that I've ever met. Now, in hindsight, now that he's seen, like, what I've done with YouTube, he has a respect for what I'm able to do with that. Excuse me, sorry about that. Man, fighting off a cold here. But you got to keep it up, got to work. Doesn't matter if you get sick, you got to get out them videos. So my friend and I were still friends, but there was, it was especially, like, right after that, we were kind of jilted. We were both kind of jilted, you know what I mean, with each other. And on my end, I used that as a driving force. I was like, I am going to use this as a chip on my shoulder, and I am going to show you just what you missed out on. And this isn't the only circumstance for that. And this is a perfect example of something that I think is important in life, especially when you're doing something like YouTube or a band, or if you have, it's that Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant approach. And I'm not calling myself like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, or anything like that. What I'm referring to is their mindset. They have a chip on their shoulder mindset. There's books about it, and I don't remember the authors. I'm a basketball fan, by the way, so sorry, you're going to have to suffer through a basketball analogy. But Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, two of the best basketball players to ever have played basketball. And both of them were notorious for being almost vindictive about their work. Like they were vindictive to the point that, like, they were so vindictive. They had such a chip on their shoulder. Every time they lost a game, anytime anybody ever said a word to them, and I mean from childhood, they had this driving force of a mentality that was so vindictive that they couldn't be vindictive because they weren't going to allow this driving force to be written off as vindictive. That was too low of a thing for them. They had this, they were going to use every negative thing that ever happened to them in their life as a driving force to push them to greatness. It was something that was on their mind with every shot that they took on the court. Every time they were in the gym and they're doing reps, they were going to do one more because that guy said something to them, at the coffee shop the day before or something like that. I don't even know. But they used all that stuff. So I was doing the same thing. I was pissed. I was hot. I was hurt. And I wanted to use that. That was going to be a thing where I was told I was already a little bit jilted on this whole thing. The story. We don't need to cover it anymore. And I'm not trying to knock my friend because, again, I still believe he's a super amazing musician. And I was hurt because I liked being a part of that. You know what I mean? So, and I had my own sides of this. You're hearing my side of the story. He's got his too. And it is, I am a good social media guy. So yes, understandable. That's something that under different circumstances would have been the perfect thing for me to do, and for me to turn my nose up in the punk rock way that I did, saying I'm not going to touch social media. I can see how he would feel jilted about that as well. So there's two sides on that one. On my side, though, I was going to use it as a means of like pushing the stuff that I was doing. And I was doing YouTube, and I'm like, like you wanted me to do social media, I'm doing YouTube, and I was doing music, YouTube, like some of that stuff at the time as well. Let's see what happens now. Now that I've got this fire, there was a perfect storm of events, that whole thing happening, and basically that whole thing happening. Well, there was one other thing, and I think we are at that point in the story where, so the next thing that happened after that, which played a really big role in the start of my YouTube channel. While all that was going down, I had this driving force, like, I am going to show you what I can do. And I'd already thought about it, like I love doing this Cozumel stuff. See this that I was with, some of the music stuff. It's still on the channel. But that's when I kind of figured out, like, music stuff. That's when I figured out that I really wanted to do fishing, Padre Island, beach content. I wanted something that was going to take, that I could spend time with my family, and I wanted to kind of recenter, refocus on family stuff. And it needed to be revolved around fishing. It needed to be revolved around the beach and, all these sorts of things that we do. And then, I hate my kids. Then I got invited on a fishing trip that completely changed my life. It was the first time, like, there were so many firsts. I saw so many species. It was the farthest offshore I had ever been. It was on an amazing boat. I saw things that I, to this day, have still never seen again. It was an amazing, amazing fishing trip. And it was this right here. Of course, it's all dramatic, and it was all, and then the ad has to play. Sorry. So I've got the audio muted on this. This is definitely worth checking out if you like our videos. This is the very first fishing video that I did, and it went viral. And that was unique and amazing, and that set me off on the course that I am on now for YouTube. This is how I got my start, was by this video happening. So that is well, that's my story for today. that was the next phase of how I got started on YouTube. And I don't have a lot of technical advice on this. Don't worry about that. I've got some technical advice coming. I'm going to be putting out that video. I alluded to it in the last podcast episode that we did, but I'm going to be putting out a video where I talk about the 3 things that you first need to decide on. But when you are getting started, it doesn't have to be before you start your channel, but there are 3 things that you really need to consider and figure out before not necessarily before you start your channel, but at the beginning stages of your channel. You need to figure this stuff out. And I'm going to put out that whole video. I'm working on it. I'm under the weather. I'm sick, so I'm kind of dragging behind here. Sorry about that. But I do appreciate you hanging out here with me. I thank you so much for coming and joining me today. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you got a little bit of not maybe some insight, but a little bit of encouragement to help push you along your journey. If you have any questions, feel free, ask me in the comments of the podcast and everything down below. I am more than happy to help out in any way that I can. Fledgling channel and everything, we're kicking things off and seeing how it goes. So again, thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. And I look forward to doing this again with you in the very near future. Have a wonderful day. See you next time.